the early side this week, but it's better to be earlier than to be late. This is something that I have worked out over the years. I'm just going to log on to my other account and we'll see whether I've actually can hear myself, which will be nice. Here we are. And there's someone else already online. There we go. Somebody else is already there. Right, let me just restart this thing. Right, we're running now. Ah, yes. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Mr. Cox. Good evening, Mr. Simpson. Good evening, Mr. Bramble. Right. Do any of you have anything you want to say? First of all, we have my new little toy, which is my new microphone, which I use to record particular a particular thing just earlier on, but just tomorrow's video, which has already been done. Um, sorry, my lady wife's trying to tell me to do something, and I'm not going to do it, I'm afraid. What's in the bag? It's my new microphone, which has improved the sound quality on the channel, which I recorded the first video with it. I recorded that earlier on today, so you can all hear what that sounds like. When you start the questions, whenever you want, sir. Whenever you want, you can start with the questions. Let me just check the time again on here. I think we're 5 minutes early, but we can start anyway because there's enough people online now. We'll get more as it goes on. So yes, feel free to ask whatever you like. And I've got my second account up here, which means I can actually see who's asking what. It's very difficult if you're on one device. So I'm on two, which is what they recommend you do. Ah, hello Wayne. Yes, nice Christmas. Very quiet Christmas, because of course, the Christmas season was just one day, and now we're in tier 4, like all sorts of other people. More goodies for 45. Well, I didn't really get anything for it. There's not really much I want to really do to it at the moment, to be honest. I've got unfortunately other things to spend my money on. Um, did yes, Mr. G, season's greetings. Yes, Merry Christmas. Yes, indeed. Alan Simpson, did Santa bring you any more cars or car bits? Not really. Um, my main concern was actually getting this microphone and also two external hard drives, because that means I can keep all the footage and make better videos in the future. That was what I got, rather than actual bits of the car. Uncle Beanbag says, "Do you believe in the arcane dream?" I have no idea what the arcane dream is, I'm afraid. Harry, my father's Polo is the base spec 3-cylinder with there's a no air conditioning. Yes, I thought it probably was. That'll be the 55 brake horsepower 1.2. Unfortunately, my son put his urine in my car's exhaust pipe and that doesn't work. What do I do? Go and buy some normal AdBlue. I think is probably that, if it's a diesel that takes AdBlue. But of course we can't talk about that because we don't talk about diesels on this channel, do we? Yes, it'll be something that sort of goes on. One of the main issues about being in tier 4 is that I had some plans to do some filming, which was going to be 26th, 27th of December. I was going to do filming, but unfortunately that didn't happen, which is a bit of a shame. Rover Joe says, "Do you like Rovers?" Well, yes, I've had 8 of them, so yes. Mr. Harry Cox, I got a new phone, a nice Xiaomi, very nice. I'm not gonna save the next one. Jojo, how long have you been watching this channel? We, we've not been able to talk about diesels on this channel from the first video in September 2018. Yes, good man. Yes, indeed. Indeed, we like Rovers. Are you gonna to have a mailbox so we can send all our good junk. I don't really want junk, to be honest. I mean, that's one of the things that puts me off kind of setting up. I don't really have any place to store loads and loads of junk. So we actually have one already for my mother's business, but I'm very reluctant to actually give that up because I don't really want all kinds of random stuff that I haven't got any room for, I'm afraid. KK Explores, yes, we are live. Yes, I've been saying that we go live. We went live as well. When was it? Yes, it was just before Christmas, wasn't it? With our first one. Anyway, yes. So yeah, the main issue that I'm having at the moment is just finding stuff to film, which is it's sort of in kind of the area that I'm in. We've got something to film, which is near where Mr. Coleman is, and but I'm just waiting for Mr. Coleman to be kind of in a position where he's able to receive guests again, having a bit of a rest. So I've got stuff in that area to do. I've got to do stuff that's either very, very close to where I am, which is probably within an hour or so of where we live, or know where Mr. Coleman is, because being in Tier 4, it's effectively the same as the previous lockdown was. And so, I can't go and stay anywhere legitimately because it's not really sort of business, this channel. Really, it's sort of associated with it, but it's not really business. So I can't really go and do all the. I've been offered lots and lots of different cars. I was going to film, loads of cars next week, but again, they're all in the Tier 4 area, so I can't do them really, and it's a bit of a pain. So I'm really looking for cars now, which are quite close to where I live at the moment, and then quite soon I hope to go and do the ones that are near where Mr. Coleman is. That'll be fun because there's a few of those that I have as well. But at the moment, there's not really anything too exciting coming up. Right, let's catch up with some of these comments. I'm getting my Rover 25 back on the road. That's excellent. I like Rover 25s up to a point, because I find, unfortunately, drum position very uncomfortable in them, and the clutch with the cable clutch is not a nice clutch on them if they're high mileage, unfortunately. The low mileage 25s are quite nice, actually, apart from the cramp in my right leg, which I tend to get in them. It's a shame, really. Mr. G, are you going to do any more cars or TV or film? The problem is that when I do those, nobody watches them. Nobody watches cars, television, or film, really, comparatively. I can do more, and I would do more if I had nothing else to do, but the thing is, a lot of people watch them, so that was always a problem. KK Explorers, I missed the other one. Well, the thing is, if you miss the other one, you can go back and take a look at it. It's on there. It's the beauty of doing a live video. You can take a look at it. Mr. D'Souza, yes, hello. KK Explorers, it's very nice you've got a Rover 75, but unfortunately we've got a problem, because that's powered by the forbidden fuel, so that's a bit of an issue. Mr. D'Souza, what do you think of the Citroen C6? They are very interesting cars. I've never driven one of those. I'd really like to try one. Mr. Coleman thinks they're amazing, and he likes those kind of big old Citroens. No for Joe. Mr. Curry is in Tier 4, unfortunately, and I don't think he's got anything new for me to film at the moment, unfortunately. Alan Simpson, where would you like to most go for a future Hyperbolic Shuffle? Oh my gosh, there's so many places that I could go to do that. The London Classic Car Show is coming up in April. There'll be certainly one of that. Bromley Pageant, actually, I'm going to do one there. They should be open, I think, in June. So lots of different interesting places. Patrick Tui, do you rate the Triumph Acclaim? I would love to review a Triumph Acclaim. When I was growing up, one of our neighbours had a Triumph Acclaim. Next door neighbour had an Acclaim. So I'd love to do one. I thought of owning one. I just, it's like so many people say, are you going to review one? It's like, well, the only way I can normally review a car is if somebody offers a thing to me, or I know someone who's got one, and that's it. If I don't know someone who's got one, then I can't film it, pretty much, or nobody offers one. Depression Music, good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. Patrick, yes, thank you for all the videos. That's fine. Mr. Bill from Miles Wheels, good evening. Mr. Cox, you're back. Thoughts of the current Jaguar range? Gosh, I don't know. The problem with the Jaguar range is a lot of them are powered by the Ingenium engine. And the Ingenium engine is one of these things in the future we're not going to be able to talk about. It's rather like the Prince engine, or the 1998 Avengers film, or diesels. We can't talk about that. So that's a bit of a problem, isn't it? KK Explores. Yes, you can watch the previous one. That's fine. Uh, yes, I never had so it's a Depeche Mode Zero Music. Um, yes, I have a plan to go to Summit Garage because they haven't offered me another car to go and film the next time I go up. It needs some work first though, so I'm gonna have to wait. It's gonna be a very good video, that one I think, but we're gonna have to wait. Ian Devonshire, by this time next year, what change would you like to see on the channel? But to be honest, I'd like, to have actual money to film more Tweed Jacket reviews. We have to stop filming because they're a huge financial burden on our personal finances. So we really can't film anymore at the moment, probably about 4 a year. Otherwise, it's not economical to film them. So we have to basically just stop, which is a bit of a shame. If we had money, we'd film more of them, but there we go. Robert Joe. Hopefully, Pride of Longbridge will be on in 2021. Yes, indeed. Pride of Longbridge, April 2021. I look forward to going to that very, very much. Mr. Harry Cox, I'm in North Somerset. Yes, it was 3 and then 2 and then 3. It was really, really, really strange that. Um, yes, there's 3 acclaims in the it depends where you are in the country. Sometimes there's a lot of funny cars in various places, and just the way that it goes really. Only tier 2, yeah. New Forest is only tier 2. The rest of Hampshire's tier 4. It's really, really strange. I mean, I would like to tier 3. It's very, very, very confusing. KK Explores. I'm in North Somerset too. That's nice. I like North Somerset. It's very nice. Western Superman, I think, is in North Somerset. That sort of area. That's nice up there. Mr. D'Souza, what do you prefer, MG or Sanyong? That's a massive question. I don't know. It depends which sort of range you're doing. MG and Sanyong really only overlap for 2 models, which is the ZS and HS. They don't overlap for anything else really. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Take your pick really. Mr. Cox, is it just me who thinks the new Corsa at the side of the Astra? I've actually had a walk around of both Corsa Fs, the electric Corsa E Corsa F, which is very confusing, and the normal Corsa. I think it was a 1.2 SRI. I don't know if they're the size of an old Astra. I'd have to sort of look at that. But if you want to have a look at them, then they are on the channel. Yes, Western Superman. Yes, I actually found a couple of videos there. Funnily enough, I can't tell which ones they were. Hello, Mr. Saxby. See you later. That's all right. Doesn't really matter. Mr. Cox, yes, well, I know well. I've been there. Rover Joe, I live up in Yorkshire. Yes, I love Yorkshire. My father was from there. My family still live in South Yorkshire, actually. A lot of them. Saxo. If you want to see a review of the Saxo, Mr. Cox, then just go to the Tweed Jacket Reviews playlist and look at the Section Saxo review, because I did one on Tweed Jacket Reviews in October 2019. So have a look at that. Mr. Bramble, do you think old Fords deserve a high price they fetch? It really depends which ones they are. Something like a nice Granada, like the one Mr. Coleman has, probably does. It's a fantastic car. Some of the others, I don't really know, to be honest. I'm not really sure. Yeah, so things like a sort of standard Mark II Escort, I'm not really sure. Certainly the sort of RS Turbos, RS Cosworths are quite, they're quite expensive now. The Mark III Escort, I'm not sure. Mark III Escort I drove on the channel in Tweed Jacket Reviews. That was a 1.3L. It's quite a basic one, and they just leave me a bit cold. They're not. I don't think they're that interesting really. I prefer a Maestro, this one Sunny N13, load of different things to that. It's all right, but unless it's really a gear or an XR3, XR3i, then yeah, that's just a really thing. What bands of music are you into, Top? That's a massive topic. I'm not gonna get it. You'd have to ask me very specific questions about that, because that could be a huge thing. Alan Simpson, do you think that VW will overtake Ford as the best-selling UK brand? Quite possibly. I don't know. We'll have to look at the figures after this year is finished to see what has actually happened. Mr. Cox, have you ever watched Random Motors? Yes, I watched Random Motors at the time, but it was actually a channel, which was until about 2005, I think. and then they got their YouTube archive as well, which I've watched too. KK Sports, do you purposely get the timing wrong? Closing with no, I don't purposely get the time wrong. I don't even know why I do it. I really don't know why I do that. I've no idea. It's just there, and I continue to do it because it's always been there. Uh, and it's a very similar question to what I got asked last time. But what was um what's the most basically what's the most disappointing car I've ever driven? It's a really difficult to say because a lot of the cars I drive, they sort of live up to expectations or don't or whatever. Because the Escort, you could say it was disappointing because it was so basic and slow and they don't handle very well and they're all it's all bumpy and things but I kind of knew that, so there you go. Um, I can tell you what car was so bad, when I was in my professional career that I wished I hadn't ever gone to, and that was a 2001 Seat Ibiza, which had moss growing all over it, no coolant in the tank, driver's door, passenger door that wouldn't shut, and the collapsed driver's seat. That was disappointing. I didn't even drive that. What time will this finish? Mr. Cox says, I don't know, probably about 9 o'clock. Um, Rover, I got a 214 back in September. Excellent. Um, I was also on the lookout for a Maestro and Montego. However, I went with 200. The Maestros and Montegos are so much rarer than the R8s. They're so much more difficult to find. I'd love to have one, but they're so difficult to find, particularly in sort of nice trim. The Vanden Plas for the Maestros for only 12 of those. So yes, what do you say, Jojo? What do you think is the best vehicle for carrying four elderly passengers in addition to the driver? It's got to be something with a sort of a high ride height in it. There's going to be something that lots of room either side. MGHS, Sangnon Corando, something like that. I should think. Okay, well, I love my for Puma. Yes, I'd love to review a Puma. I haven't been offered one of those yet. Mrs. Saxby, I heard your question, but I have not Q&A. Yes, I always ask Ian Seabrook questions. I wouldn't have got my channel started without Ian Seabrook. So I'm very grateful to him. Always will be. Mr. Cox, I don't know why mother's favourite was a 206 in green. I don't like the 206. It's not a good car. Sorry. Well, you can review my Sinclair C5 if you like. That's very kind. Does that Sinclair C5 actually work? Because it'd be nice if it actually works. I don't know what else I'd do if it didn't work really. Depeche Mode music. What is your car of the year? I'm going to be doing a video on about Wednesday, which will be actually looking at the most surprising sort of cars of the year in terms of I had no expectation or whatever it was, and the video did very well, or the videos that I thought would do better than they did, something like that. I can't remember the exact title. I have to frame that properly, but we will be doing one of those. So yes, I will have to actually sum that up as well, and you'll probably hear about that in the next few days. KKX4 was much of my first car. Yeah, my grandfather on my father's side had about 5 Maestros. Mr. Harry Cox, would you ever buy a Rover 25? Not really. They're perfect, decent cars, and the one I drove was very nice, but I just get cramp in my right leg after about half an hour because of the driving position in them, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no cruise control available on 25, so I couldn't really own one, I'm afraid. It's a bit of a shame. Mr. Simpson, if you could review one of Ian Seabrook's cars, what would you like to do most? Oh my gosh. A lot of them I don't really have a desire to film. It's really strange. I think Ian Seabrook's wonderful, but I don't really like any of his cars to sort of own myself. I'm not really that fussed. Probably the Yugo Sana if that worked, but they're not really, a lot of them, the sort of cars that I would personally own. Mr. David H. Good evening, sir. Yes, good evening. Are you hoping to review a Skoda Yeti? I could do a Skoda Yeti on sensible second-hand reviews. They're under £5,000 now, so yes, we could do one of those. Mr. D'Souza, do you like the fact that car companies set their names for all sports cars and then put them on Slightly bland crossovers like the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross. I don't really know, to be honest. You know, companies have been doing this for years. I mean, anything you know anybody about Skoda Octavia will know that the Octavia came out several times in the life of it. So it's been going on for years. Whether that's a good idea or not, I don't really know. Yes, KK Explorers are in perfect working order. Excellent. We like things which are in perfect working order. Um, Aaron, Rover Joe, I've got a big list of jobs for 25, which is to replace the near side rear wheel actions. Rotten. Yeah, that's a problem with those Rovers. They do get rotten, unfortunately. I'm trying to think of any Rover that's not known for rust, and I can't. I think any of them are, unfortunately, to an extent. Uh, but over to Susan, what's the worst Peugeot ever? Probably the 207, probably the worst Peugeot ever. Recox, my mother's Suzuki Splash has been troublesome needing a new gearbox. Uh, that's basically a Vauxhall Aguila, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe the clutch and that is worn out. I don't really know. Just Vauxhall Amiga or Peugeot 607. Ask Andrew Souza. Ask me after I've driven the Peugeot 607. I haven't driven the 607. An Amiga I have, and that was very good. So, Mr. Jake Bell from Moz Wheels. Um, I would review. I took the IndyCar out of Mr. Seabrook's Peter vehicles. If I have the chance, because it's different. Well, I've seen that in person, and it's terrifying. You look at it and you think, oh my gosh, if the thing's going to fall apart and I will fall out and I will die, which isn't really the case, but it just looks terrifying. Seeing it in person. So there you go. Mr. Harry Cox, can you review a 2000 Toyota Previa? I could, but as I said at the beginning of the video, the only way I tend to get cars is either somebody emails me and offers me the car, or I know somebody who's got one, or um, I can contact the press fleet and get a car off the press. It's very difficult actually getting a car out of a press fleet. Um, so yes, but I'd have to be offered it really, to be honest. Mr. Bramble, Haven't Street is a bit obscure. Yes, it's very obscure, and he loves it. I mean, that's how people tune in, isn't it? Really. What Depeche Mo Zero the music or whatever it is. Which formal qualifications do you need to be a vehicle consultant? You don't need any formal qualifications to be a vehicle consultant. You need to know enough about cars and how the market works and things. Really, that's all you kind of need. They don't need any formal qualifications for it. So the C5 is in perfect working order. That sounds wonderful, brilliant. Mr. Cox, my mother and father want to get a Focus Astra Estate. I don't really know. I wouldn't buy a diesel because that's a forbidden fuel, of course, but it just depends. It depends on what's the best value and what condition it's in, what the service history's like, what the MOT history's like. Whether the timing belt's been changed in it, if it's got a timing belt, the personal preference and equipment levels. I mean, I don't know. A person like the Astra, well, there we go. But the thing is, if you're not one person who's driving it, it's a bit difficult to know what influence is going to be. Mr. Mr. G, what's your favourite hot hatch, old or new? Oh, I don't know really. I really don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe Honda Civic EG6 VTI, maybe. Um, Mr. Cox, thoughts on the Daewoo Matiz or Fiat Seicento, or Daewoo Matiz, or Daewoo Matiz twice. Um, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people want me to review a Matiz, and I will. It's not a car that to be honest, that keen on. I think they're very underpowered. Any of them are underpowered. The interior is not that nice, and as Ian Seabrook says, they're very uncomfortable. So they were just very cheap cars that Chevrolet stroke Daewoo sold at the bottom end of the market, and they were quite popular. That's it really. Mr. Simpson, I know you're more of a fan of a luxury car with creature comforts, but are there any basic cars that you really like? I don't know. I kind of enjoyed that Renault 5. That was very basic, but I prefer a Monaco one, to be honest. I don't know, really. Not sure. Yes, Mr. Cox says hello to Mr. G. Erin asks, what do you do when you're a vehicle consultant? Do you just help people buy cars or do something else? If you read the description on every single video, apart from the live ones on the channel, you'll actually see what I do. I explain it really well in the description. I don't know more to say about that. You know, there's another video on my channel somewhere which talks about, you know, the typical process that I go through as well. I don't know what it's called. It's a very long time ago. I filmed that, maybe June 2019. But it's somewhere about, you know, what do I actually do? It's not really that. It's not really that kind of exciting, I'm afraid. Yeah, like most kind of cars I source for clients aren't that exciting because most people don't really need very exciting cars. That's just the way that it goes. Mr. Cox, BMW, Audi, or Mercedes? Oh, I don't know. It really depends on what the sort of car is. I honestly don't know. It depends on the individual car. I'm not sure I have a really strong preference for any of those. Apart from maybe Audi, but I'm not that fond of a lot of most modern cars anyway. So no idea. Depeche M0 the music. Do you follow Formula One? Not anymore. No, not these days. David H. Any news of any kind of cars are going ahead? Yes, as far as I know, the two that are definitely going ahead are the London Classic Car Show at Scion Park in April. There's the Bromley Pageant that is in June. I'm pretty sure that's going ahead. There's the Classic Car Restoration Show. I think that's in June as well. There's also Pride of Longbridge, it's hopefully happening in April. I think that's about it. Alan Simpson, how do you meet the tin cans who provide some of your theme music? I'm planning perhaps on contacting Lawrence, who was the sort of lead in the Tin Can band. He lives in London, so I doubt I'll be actually going to see him in person. So yeah, another EP is very good. Yeah, I probably will get Lawrence to see if he wants to do an interview and we could talk more about it. I first met Lawrence in 2003 when I was working as sort of volunteer on a Christian youth camp actually, and yeah, that's when I first met him. Known him a very long time. Mr. Bill from Was Wheels, quite a few mini shows are going ahead with provisional dates. It's a case of a lot of things, but unfortunately, a lot of the dates are provisional, and it's just everything keeps changing at the moment, and so it's kind of annoying. And yes, for Simpson, the Tin Cans EP is great. It's worth downloading. Mr. Bramble, do you have any hobbies apart from automotive? I do. Yes, a lot. There's the 1960s 1960s television series I'm very much into. I'm actually a qualified scuba diver as well. Would you believe? I actually am. I have been to some places and done that. There's other things I'm very into. Sort of technology as well in general. I've been into that for a number of years. I used to live with someone who was a computer programmer for many years, and I've got multiple operating systems on a PC that's sitting in the office upstairs, which needs some work, and hopefully that'll be working again for editing and things at some point. Bit like James Martin, he's into that kind of stuff too, actually, often the JM on cars. Mr. Cox, thoughts on the Civic FN2 Type R? I have probably none about the Civic FN2 Type R. I've never driven one. If the suspension's really firm, then I probably won't like it, but it's probably quite good fun. Mr. Aaron D'Souza, I don't get tiny city cars. The boot is too small for my needs. May miss out on many features, and where I live, city cars do not make a difference parking for me. The market for city cars is massively shrinking at the moment. Really shrinking. They just don't actually offer particularly good sort of value for the makers to make. They tend to make very small profits. The old phrase about the old Mini was mini cars make mini profits, and it's true. Some of them are fine. I've driven a few of them actually. Some of them are pretty good. The Seat Me, it's going to go quite nice to drive, but just a bit slow. The first generation Toyota Aygo, despite what Matt from Hypercorder says, that's just not a very nice car. It's just not a nice car to drive. This cars are very skinny and the boot is tiny. Seat Rossa, that's all right. That's basically a Polo with a tiny boot. Some people like really small cars; they don't have any space. So there we go. It might be great to do. Yeah, I'll see if we can get Lawrence on the channel and have a little word with him. He currently runs a pizzeria in Earlsfield with his wife, so he's got quite a different career than what you'd expect. Mr. Cox, what phone do you have currently? I've got a few of them. One of the phone I film most of the videos on the channel is a Sony Xperia Compact. No, Sony Xperia XZ1 Compact. I also have an Xperia Z5 Compact I used to film most of the videos on, but that is going to be retired because the battery on that is appalling. So we'll have to get rid of that one. And I've got an Honor 9 Lite. I'm hoping to transfer to a new phone at some point. I have already bought it, but it's just sitting in a box and I've got around to it yet. Andrew Souza, what do you dislike about modern cars? Do you care about modern cars not having cigarette lighters? I don't care about the actual cigarette lighter, but a 12-volt socket is very handy to have. And, you know, the Sanyong's got quite a few 12-volt sockets. I think it's got 3 or something. It's quite random. I don't know why you need 3, but it's got 3 of them. Mr. G, have you ever been to Sharm el Sheikh? Oh, yes, the diving around there is fantastic. Oh, it's brilliant around there. Never been there, though. Lots of old Peugeot taxis, yeah. They made the Peugeot 406 and 405 as the Peugeot Pars until, I think they're still making it in Iran. So there's quite a few around there. And Egypt's got all kinds of old cars that were made up until right recently. Like the Lada Riva was made in Egypt until very recently, for some reason. Marie Cox, my driver was horrified when I just did Volkswagen Fox, so he did up. He did be up's a perfectly decent car. The Fox up here is not too bad either. Certainly something to actually have a look at some point. Depeche M0D Music. Do you rate the MGTF? You can see if I do by watching the review of the MGTF on No Budget Reviews. The example that I actually reviewed was provided by Tom, who lives up quite near Mr. Coleman was a concours example. It was beautiful, beautiful condition, that car. You can get them for a lot less money, but he kept it in lovely condition. That was a prime condition car. One of the nicest cars in terms of just the condition of the car that I've ever done No Budget Reviews, and it's quite a good fun as well. It's a good fun car actually, the TF. KK Explores. Do you watch Stavros 969's YouTube channel? No, I've never heard of that one actually. Maybe I'll have to take a look at that one. Alan Simpson, can you play any musical instruments? I can't these days. I used to play the piano a long time ago. I think I stopped playing that in 1998. I think I stopped playing the piano, maybe even before that. Jonathan, ever scrapped a car that's worth down with a fortune? No, because the Dolomite I had, that still isn't worth a lot of money, unfortunately. But still not worth a lot of money, and I had mine about 15 years ago, and it's still not worth a lot of money, unfortunately. And I sold that, didn't scrap it, and somebody scrapped it for me, I think. Mr. Cox, Force of the First Generation Red Scenic. Not a fan of those particularly. Not a massive fan of them. I do hope to review a Renault Megane Classic of that era quite soon because I've been offered one. It's not quite ready yet, but hopefully at some point we'll be able to you know, do that. That will be interesting. Mr. D'Souza, I don't smoke. It doesn't matter to me, as long as the car has a 12-volt socket. Yeah, that's good. You know, I remember having my old Rover 216 SLI automatic that I had earlier this year, and that had a 12-volt socket. That was really useful because I could plug an adapter in there for charging stuff and also for via Bluetooth running my phone to the adapter and then to the phone. That actually worked really well. So yeah, having a cigarette lighter or 12-volt socket is fantastic, really, in a car. Elias Lamari, what is your opinion about the Citroen DS with a hydrogen pneumatic suspension? ever driven one, do you think the PSA with brand DS couldn't do justice to original, does it? DS is such a confusing brand because they have these bold designs and things, but they're so unbelievably expensive for what they are, which is just kind of warmed over Peugeots and Citroens, and the sales are tiny in this country. They're not really technologically that different from the Citroen themselves. I think the Citroen C5 Aircross does have a certain type of appeal to it. It's not a car that appeals to me particularly, but that's more sort of Citroen than it sort of used to be. But the brand on itself, I don't know. I did drive a DS3 a few years ago, and that was all right. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I'm not sure the brand really justifies its existence at the moment, to be honest. KK Explorers, mainly trucks. We just review cars too. That's interesting. I've never heard of him before. Depeche M0D Music. I'll go and check it later. I owned a pristine limited edition TF. Yes, I remember there were a few limited edition TFs. There were a few of them, particularly the really late ones, which were made under Nanjing Automotive from 2008 onwards. Yes, good evening, Mr. Woolard. Good evening, sir. Yes, hello to Mr. Woolard as well. Mr. G, apart from the YouTube channels we know, are you watching there? Any other non-car-related channels to watch? Yes, loads and loads and loads. Tom Scott, I like the Bearded Explorer. Well, that's sort of car-related as well. Well, there's loads. Half as interesting. Real life law. Could go on. Cold Fusion, that's more for technology. Mr. Mobile, which is an American channel, who's called Mr. Mobile. Loads, absolutely loads and loads of them. Mr. Wooler, what's his favourite German brand? I don't know if it's BMW or not. To be honest, I don't really know. I'm not sure if I have a favourite German brand. I don't know actually. Not sure. Mr. Cox have asked, "Are you?" Yes, I'm fine. I just would like some cars to film that are nice and close to where we live, because then we can actually get some channel content. Yes, hello, Aaron. Yes, indeed. Mr. Alan Simpson, are there any really popular wildlife cars you don't like and don't understand the hype over? Oh, yeah, there's loads. Some of them are kind of, Audis and Mercedes and BMWs. I don't understand a lot of that stuff, unfortunately. The older BMWs, I get more. I understand those a bit more, but a lot of the modern ones, I don't know if they're really that interesting. I don't know why you just go out and buy an Audi Q3 when you can just go and buy, I don't know, a Ssanyon Corando, just have a nice 7-year warranty, lots of equipment. I don't really understand why you'd buy one. I think the Mercedes A-Class is very overrated than the modern one. Let's just see here. Mr. Bill, do you have any plans for the Santa Pod Challenge 2021? Well, we do, but the thing is that I don't know when we're going to be able to do it. So it's no point in me really planning anything like that when I don't know if we're going to be able to go and do the Santa Pod Challenge. So I'd love to, but I can't. That's just it's just one goes. I have to go back up here once. Yes, Kegis was yes. It's very difficult to say. It's perfectly fine to spell. It's just difficult to say. I understand why it's like that, but it's just sort of difficult to say. Yes, in your opinion, Mr. Cox. Yes, indeed. Yes, Beard Explorer is a very fun channel. I do like him. I like his personality. It's very good. He's like a nice chap. Depeche M0D Music. It broke me when your lady wife said she had to sell the MG because she needed a new ironing board. New ironing boards don't cost so much money. I don't know quite why need to sell that. KK Explorers, you've got a few car Explorers channel. That'd be interesting. I'd have a look at those. Jonathan Bramble, I had an MGTF. This content was amazing. I don't remember when I drove that if it did that so much. Maybe it was a really nice one, so it didn't. Perhaps they do. Mr. G, have you seen I Am Stokesy's channel? He has some great cars that's collected by hoarders. I've never seen that one. I'm afraid I haven't seen that one either. Yes, have a look at the KK Explorers channel. Just gonna get a snack. I'll be back. Let's just see, 40 minutes. Okay, that's fine. What do you think of the Batman and 47 engine? I think you're going to have to talk to Mr. Woolard about that. He would know. He would know about more about that actually than I would. I have heard some really bad things about them. Mr. Woolard would be able to tell you more about them than me. AWS21. Oh, that's a very interesting question. We actually, discussed this quite recently with one of my channel viewers. Thoughts of the demise of the three-door car. Yes, the normal three-door car has been killed off in huge numbers. The Golf isn't really available as a three-door anymore. The Polo's not available as a three-door anymore. The Up, I think, has been killed off as a three-door too, almost. The Leon SC's gone, and so has the three-door Ibiza. One of the things is that the Rio that I filmed on the channel, the second-hand reviews, which is a very fantastic car. It's been very low number of views in terms of that video on the Kia Rio, but that was a really good car. I quite liked it as a three-door. I think it looks quite stylish as a three-door. Obviously, most people prefer the five doors, and a lot of people took one look at it and said, "I wouldn't buy the three-door." Most people just say, "I wouldn't buy the three-door." So that just goes to show, a lot of people just have the opinion they wouldn't bother with the three-door version. They want the five-door only. So there we go. Yeah, it's just one of these things. The coupes in general are dying off, and people are just buying SUVs because that's what the market wants. So there we go. KK explores my videos of abandoned buildings. Some of the locations of abandoned cars. Yes, that sounds fascinating. Furkan Kavsur, I do apologize if I've got your name wrong. I don't know why, but I want to paint my 1990 Audi 80 orange with some wall paint and put a German flag on the roof. That sounds a bit like the sort of thing Ian Seabrook would do. Not necessarily what is a bad thing, but I think the sort of thing he's into really. I don't know what I think about the Audi 80 in general. I think it's the B3 you're talking about there. I'd love to do an 80 or 90 B3 on the channel. I'd love to do one of those actually. Not sure I'd prefer it in orange with the German flag on the roof particularly, but there we go. Mr. Simpson, what ideal three-course meal? Oh gosh, this definitely isn't a cooking channel. Certainly not. I do like sort of a nice prawn cocktail to start with. I do very much like that. Then maybe some steak and chips, and perhaps some very very nice pudding. Maybe sort of Arctic roll or something. I like Arctic roll. Mr. Aaron D'Souza. Is Mr. Woolard from Max Beamer? Yes. Mr. Woolard is from Max Beamer. He's indeed. Depeche M0D Music. I'm about to open a nice Chianti. I hope you haven't got any flavour beans with that, because that would be a bit disturbing. What's your favourite wine? Probably a Sancerre. Been to Sancerre, it's lovely. The wine's very nice too. Ilyas Lamari, how has coronavirus affected your business as an independent vehicle consultant? Do people contact you less or maybe more? Is the public looking for even cheaper, older cars? Yes, the coronavirus has adversely affected my business, because during the first lockdown, I couldn't do any work. I literally could do no work for over 2 months. And even now, I've got a client who's in tier 4 and I can't do the job, I think. I think we're going to postpone that. I've had so many jobs postponed because of this coronavirus situation. And it's it's really annoying. And not only that, even if I can go and get stuff, sometimes the dealerships themselves close. Summit Garage, for example, were closed during the last lockdown entirely, and we had to wait to go and film the cars we filmed there because they weren't open. So it just sort of goes, one thing follows another, and it's been very frustrating. But that's the case for a lot of people. I'm very grateful we're in a position that I am. So there we go. But do people look for older, cheaper cars? Sometimes yes, sometimes they do. The last one I did was Kia Venga, I think the last one I did was, which was just before it was announced that London was going to Tier 4. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Furkan Kavsur, product was quite good. Well, we aim to please in pronunciation. Mr. Wooler looks a bit upset because the new 1 Series is only a 5-door. The Rush doesn't get them, along with the Tourings. Oh, what's sad. Oh yes, yes. If he paints his Audi orange, he can put it off again. Um, oh, oh yes, Mr. Bohema. Mr. Richardson from Furious Driving has recently released a video which I've just watched for channel members and people on Patreon, and talking about the SUVs and practical stylish cars. I don't hate SUVs. Obviously, I own one, and I think the one we've got is a really good car. To be honest, I really like it. There's no Sanyong estate that's offered really. They just offer SUVs pretty much. So I like it, but I also like estate cars. I like both of them. I also like the cars like the Skoda Superb, the Seat Toledo. We used to own a Toledo, and I like those. I think if people only bought SUVs, then the market would be very boring. I think that's the main point, and yes, it would be very boring for just. Mr. Simpson Arctic Roll is awesome. I do like it. Eclipse is good. Yes, Mr. Bill is around. KK Explores, yes, everyone's really excited. Mr. Richardson is here, and it is exciting. My gosh, it's a terrible three faces there from Depeche M 0D Music being sick. That's not very nice. KK Explores Rover's still running. Yes, it's running. It's running okay. Yes, it's running okay at the moment. Yes, Mr. Richardson, the Chinese built MGF. They actually from 2008-9. It was there'd be a TF that one, and they were partially assembled in Longbridge from a kit brought over from China. So yeah, I don't know. I've never actually driven one of the the Nanjing Automotive on GTFs. Oh, we're talking about still painting here, are we? Furkan Kevzor says, I don't have a big budget. I think 5 tins of paint are cheaper than wrapping. Well, perhaps. B4 Audi Cabriolet. Oh, very nice. 2.6 V6. Very nice. David Christie. Hello. Hello, sir. Mr. Woolard here. Thank you, Aaron, for your kind comment. I am Mr. Woolard. Yes, you are indeed. Lots of people saying hello to Mr. Richardson from Furious Driving. It's your car, so your choice, but your opinion would look hideous. We came to see and to seek to draw much attention. Let's be kind to people in this chat, please. Let's just be kind to people. It's always better than being nasty, really. Furkan Kavzul, your pronunciation of my name is far better than that of Mrs. Richardson. Let's just be nice to each other on the channel this evening. Let's just be nice, please. Mr. Cox, thoughts on the Vauxhall Mariva from 2013-17? I've never driven one of those, actually. I think it's fascinating with the doors that sort of open kind of sort of like this. That's fascinating, but it's actually just a Corsa underneath, Corsa D. Don't have much more to say than that. It's got the same sort of engines and things in it. It's a Corsa D. Did you ever do a tour of Longbridge before it disappeared? Unfortunately not. So yeah, I'd like to go there at some point. I don't know if that will be happen, but no, I didn't. KK Explores, do you watch Dr. Moore's channel? Increasingly not these days, because one of these things is that with a channel, and this is the same for anything, you can watch a video from a channel and sometimes you just don't like it. And I know a lot of people who watch my stuff initially don't really like it. I've even some of the major stuff like Ian Seabrook or Mr. Richardson or sort of go on. There's a number of them. I just didn't like the first time I watched it, but something if when I really got into the channel, I think the first one I was really into on Mr. Richardson's channel, and I told him this, is the R8 214 that was saved from the scrapyard. And when I saw that, it was different from the previous stuff I'd seen. I thought it was brilliant, and ever since then I was totally hooked. And I understand if people they watch one of the videos and don't like it. You know, sometimes there are always videos on a channel that you know are more are more liked than others, and that's the case for mine. There's some videos that people hate on my channel, and that's fine. But it's worth obviously giving them a chance. With Dr. Muro, he's a very I find the second channel videos far more interesting than his primary one, because the cars are just totally out of my sort of mind in terms of they're too expensive, or they're American market cars, and I just don't find them that interesting. So sometimes he does a car that's really rare, and I haven't, behind a Grandeur I think he did a while ago, or was it an Equus or something. I find that very interesting, but the format, I think people like it. He's got millions of subscribers, and he just keeps going. So, there we go. But never write a channel off just because you don't like one of the videos. It's worth going back and seeing if there's anything on there that's sort of interesting, because as I said, some of the channels that I first saw, I think Ian Seabrook, I saw some of his stuff, and I'm a very loyal watcher of Ian Seabrook now, and I never would have gone anywhere without him. Same with the help from I've had from Mr. Richardson, help I've had from other people. So yeah, there we go. Mr. Richardson, I think you can say your own name because I've heard you say it, so there we go. Mr. Bramble, always enjoyed the channel. You reply to nearly every question. Well, we aim to please, sir. That's the way it goes. Depeche, Zero D Music. Yes, they allegedly, with the N series engine, that the Nanjing MGT have supposedly solved the head gasket issue, and you can put one of those onto a standard K series if you really want to. Actually, there's a very kind of a very good video on the Walls Wheels channel, and that actually shows a van being vinyl wrapped. If you want to see a van being vinyl wrapped at a very sort of in-depth format, but go onto Jake's Walls Wheels channel and you'll see a 2019 Vauxhall Combo being wrapped. It's quite interesting. Vinyl is not a cheap option. That's quite right. You do it properly, actually, it does cost money. Message retracted. That's interesting. Hello, Mr. Willard. What do you think of the N47 diesel? I'll leave that for Mr. Willard to answer, I think. Children, let's play nice. Yes, indeed. Let's just be polite. I remove some comments on my channel because people are just rude, and and insult each other, and that's just not on. Hit find. I love the channel. Simple reviews and well presented. Thank you for your time and effort spent. Yeah, you wouldn't believe, as Mr. Richardson said actually on the video that he made the other day, you would not believe the amount of time this actually takes to actually do. Mr. Richardson even more, because he had it sort of all himself to a much better quality standard than I do. So, and you really have to have quite a big channel to get any kind of money that covers the cost of it. You have to have a very big channel. Mr. Simpson, do you have any of knowing how people find your channel? Yes. You can see on the analytics on YouTube how people discover your content. It's actually quite easy to see that. It's very interesting. KK explores the format. Yeah, the thing is, it works for him and he does it, and people keep watching the channel. It's like, people say to me, why don't you review this and that? Sometimes it's like, well, because if I did, it would be very expensive to go to do it and sort it out, and nobody would watch it. So that's one of the things about it. You've got to be wary of that sometimes. So yes, the Toledo, yeah. The Toledo, Furious Driving review of the Toledo was far more popular than one I did, which is the first video on my channel. I'm glad we actually did that one once I still owned the car. Yes, Mr. Richardson, the 520 Van 47 launched the engine just out of warranty. Absolutely ridiculous. I think there's a video on your channel, isn't there? I'm talking more about that. That's very interesting. Mr. Jake Bill, do you have any ideas for road trips in a future similar way? Well, we could do them, but I don't find them as interesting as they do for some reason. We do. I hope we'll be able to work with them again on the next Antipod challenge. But in terms of the road trip, I don't know why, but I don't find them as interesting as they do for some reason. I'm not sure why. Um, Scotty Kilmer fan. I don't know if I'm a Scotty Kilmer fan really. Volkswagen Golf Mark IV with a 2.3 V5. Mr. Coleman would be able to tell you about those. I think he probably says they're bad. Mr. Richardson about vinyl. You need to have it prepared to paint, and it needs to be painted. Um, so it's not cheap. Yes, it's not a cheap fix. You've got to do it properly. Hip finds if you review cars, what insurance covers you? My insurance, I've got third-party cover on my insurance, and that generally covers me to drive other people's cars if I'm careful. Sometimes the owner will take out separate insurance. Mr. Coleman tends to do that actually for some of the classics, what he has for me. But yes, generally I drive on my own third-party cover, and that suffices. Um, yes, of he, Mr. D'Souza, yes, I've seen the channel. Only done 52,000 miles. Yeah, sort of on there. I don't mind if you want to have a private chat. Go on with that. Mr. Cox, I was the first and I'm going to be the last. So, well, that's good for you, sir. Dr. Mira has good content in replies to his comments. Well, he's got millions of subscribers. He couldn't keep up with the comments. He couldn't keep up with the comments. So how can you keep up with the comments if you've got 1 million or 2 subscribers? You just can't keep up with them. Sub Carlo 4's been going for years. It's far longer than I've been on YouTube. I think it's probably over 10 years. Mr. Richardson, yes, all the cars I've ever owned. Mr. G, I've had to come to terms with the fact that my channel's grown incredibly slowly. It's just the way that it is. There's nothing I can do about that other than trying new things and sort of try to keep going. It is a bit discouraging, but I certainly don't do it for the money because, as I've said, if we consider Tweed Jacket Reviews to be a key part of the channel, then it it costs a lot of money to do it. I mean, if we have the Tweed Jacket Reviews going, and we get back about 5 to 10% of the cost of a channel without me taking into consideration the time it costs me to edit the videos. So certainly don't do it for the money because we don't get much back. But I suppose we'll just have to keep going, and hopefully something will pick up at some point. I'm a bit disappointed at the fact we don't have higher numbers of people who are subscribed. I don't know why. It was something like 81% of people who watch the videos are not subscribed. I don't know why that is. I do ask people to subscribe. It'd be nice, but they don't. I don't know why. Who knows? Safic Empowerment Coach Villasante. I hope I've said that right. I've had a couple of R8 with the D16A GTI twin cam Honda engine. The single overhead cam. Yes, I've had a couple of cars with that engine compared to the double overhead cam. I don't know. I've never driven the GTI with a twin cam, so I couldn't tell you. The single overhead cam one is a very reliable engine, apart from the cam wheel gasket leak, and also the car needed a time belt one, periodically. But apart from that, they're very good engines. But it's a bit flat sounding, unfortunately. Aaron D'Souza. But the N47D engine just sound like a tractor. I don't know. I can't remember what it sounds like now. Phil Canco, so if you were an A90 sales rep, you have a choice between a Ford Orion, a Astra Saloon, and a 19 Chimard or a Tempra, what would you pick? All the 1.6. If it was an Orion, it would have to be the post-facelift Mark V, because the pre-facelift Mark Vs are terrible. Astra Saloon, I imagine we're talking about the Astra F here. The Chimard, I probably wouldn't have one of those, although they're interesting. Fiat Tempra, probably wouldn't have one. So it's between the post facelift Orion Mark 5 and the Astra F. AWS 21. What from start to finish? How long does it take to do a true jacket review? Depends what you're talking about, filming or editing. Filming can be up to 3 hours. We've done them in an hour and a half before. Editing, I don't know. You have to ask the editors. Mr. Bill is on here, and you can he'll tell you how long it takes. AWS, no, sorry, much quieter and smoother. Furious driving, correct on vinyls, really quick, a good way of quickly changing car covers. But paint shops are the reason it costs so much. Mr. Simpson, if we get to the point where people can do larger groups, would it consider a social? Yes, yes, absolutely. We tried to do a social number 2019, and one person turned up, apart from Mr. Colin, which was a bit disappointing. Mr. Cox, you prefer live stream the big one? Did we read the comments? Yes. There we go. Discover the content in lockdown. Time flies. We've been through it in 15 minutes already. Yes, we have. N47 wasn't the tire stuff BMW. Changed a well-known fault. Refers to 86 diesels too. Look, Mr. Woolard, you know by now we can't talk about those on the channel. You got it. That's the forbidden fuel. Okay, it's well, I'm confused, but I don't know what you're talking about now. Prefer 6-cylinder, 4-cylinder diesel, 6-cylinder body. Do you only live in well? I'm looking to talk about Locking Road in Weston. That's kind of interesting. Last orders driver. Look, hold on a second. Hold on a second. You know, you're not the one who you're not the one who's in charge of this live stream, are you? Mr. Cox, who closed then. Do you type to go to expectations? Have you watched the E-Type review, Mr. G? I think you have. Yes, it did. The expectations of it has been that, you know, nobody's watched it, which is a massive disappointment to me, which we'll be talking about later on this week. Mr. Bramble, the time I've seen stickers on Cars to Plug website, it works. Hopefully it does. Mr. C, you like E39? I quite like E39. I'm not sure. I did do a walk around with an M5, so yes, that's on the channel somewhere. Mr. Simpson, we're clearly having fun. Certainly, the time has flown. I think I've caught up there. I think we're going to probably have to stop there because we have been on here for, you know, quite a long time. Mr. Saxby, have you found a Kazashi? No, I found a Kazashi, but the problem is that I can't. There's no one who's offered me one. But there we go. Furkan Kevzor, do you have the more people hate the car, the more I like it syndrome? Certainly the Day next year's like that, because I quite like those. Yeah, Mr. Simpson, you ever done a handbrake turn? I have done a handbrake turn, but it was only on like a very muddy field, which was interesting. Oh, yes, so there you go. Mr. Bill, filming for Trigger Reviews about 3 hours. Yeah, that did include also the walk around that he did for his own channel too. Editing about 4 hours, sound leveling, splicing footage. Yeah, the Christmas special again. I'm not sure why more people haven't watched that. To be honest, I'm not sure. 62 minutes. You want a New Year's Eve special, do you? Well, I suppose we could do one if there's enough sort of call for it. We'd have to do a sort of poll on that and see if actually, you know, there's you know, enough call for things like that. Mr. Woolard, yes, you'll have to do an N47 video. Yes, indeed. Yes, we don't talk about them. That's a forbidden fuel. So if you want to see videos about you know, forbidden fuel, then go to the Max Beamer channel and you'll enjoy yourselves very much. Maverick Motors, Mr. Lagstaff, yes, good evening, sir. I am well. Unfortunately, we're going to be drawing this to a close soon because we've been on here for well over an hour. I can see my little timer here is telling me. So I'm going to put a poll up probably tomorrow as when we should next do one of these. If you actually like them, then obviously let me know. If you get bored by them, then obviously you can just leave and not say anything because that would be better. You know, yes, we've had a lot of questions this evening, Mr. G. Also, a lot of questions, and hopefully we've provided some answers. Don't worry, Mr. Langstaff. I'm very much enjoying the video series on your channel. I recommend the Rover 800 rescue video that's on Maverick Motors at the moment. If you haven't already seen that, it's certainly appealing to my taste anyway. Mr. Souza, we upsetting. I do have to go because my lady wife's waiting for me to come off for live stream, so that's probably a good idea to leave it. So thank you ever so much indeed to everybody who has been watching this evening. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you have a car to offer, please do send me an email, japl745@hotmail.com. And yes, hopefully we'll do one of these again soon if that's what all of you want to see. What have we got? I'll just do a couple more of these things. Mr. Bill, my father had a 1.9 diesel 3 Series BMW. We can't talk about that, can we? Mr. Ilyas Lamy, do you think the first generation Ford Twingo, Ford Camry Twingo become collector's items? Ford car, I don't know. They sold masses of those in this country, and they've all gone horribly rusty now. So possibly Twingo, they never officially sold over here until the I think the second generation or third. I forget how you do Twingo generations now. Yes, you've got to kind of stop talking about the fuel because it's not what we do on the channel. Mr. Langstoff, yes, I'm looking forward to driving your modified MG3 very much, very, very much. Mr. Wooler with his massive smile about the Alpina B10. Right, okay. Good night, everybody. We will call it a day there. And thank you, and we'll see you again in the future. And yes, exactly. We'll leave that comment. Stop talking about diesels on this channel.